And one thing we did last year that I really liked and I think is really fun to do, and I wanted to bring it in this year as one of our previews for the 500. I wanted to do a full grid preview. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to do our full grid preview. We're going to pick a driver from each row that has the best shot at winning the Indy 500. It's kind of our hot or cold, but Indy 500 edition where we're going to go through, kind of rank each driver hot through cold and give who we think is going to be the best. Now, I will say before we get into this, the outline for this podcast was made prior to Stephen Wilson's crash and Graham Rahal filling in for him. I know he will be moved to the back of the field, which obviously jumbles up the last couple of rows, but we didn't really feel like it was that big of a deal to actually go in and change everything and redo.
Because ultimately, it really only affects 3 drivers total, or 4. There's no Stephen Wilson. Graham Rahal's now in row 11, and there's 2 drivers that get bumped up a row. So ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, trying to shift all that around, it just, yeah.
Right. So
for the sake of this exercise, but yes, we are aware Stephen Wilson is not in the race. Graham Rahal is starting 33rd, and everybody gets bumped up a spot that was behind Stephen Wilson.
Right. So we've
there we go.
We've addressed that. All you YouTube comment Andy's in the chat or in the comment section. We know, we're aware. Please do not come for us for it technically being a little helter skelter from what it'll be on Sunday. Because also, like I said before we started recording, I also think I'm not sure if they'll still line him up in his normal spot, and then as they get going, because I know in NASCAR sometimes when they have to make a driver change, they will, or a car like they swap to the backup car or have an engine change, they'll still line them up where they would qualify on the grid, and then they will move back in the warm-up lap.
So according to Indy Star, they are bumping everybody up for starting positions.
Right.
So I mean that's going to kind of change how I pick, especially my last row, because it does affect. I'll just go ahead and tell you right now. So Christian Lundgaard will get bumped up to row 10. Callum Ilott will get bumped up to row 9. So now in 25th is Devlin DeFrancesco. 26th, Augustine Canapino. 27th, Callum Ilott. 28th, RC Enerson. 29th, Catherine Legg. 30th, Christian Lundgaard. 31, Stingray Robb. 32, Jack Harvey. 33, Graham Rahal.
Okay, so yeah, that's how it's going to be in those last couple of rows there. So let's go ahead and kick things off. I'm gonna go off of what it was originally, but if you want to go ahead and change it, it's only the last little bit of it that's going to be changed anyway. So originally, row 11 was inside was Christian Lundgaard, middle was Stingray Robb, Jack Harvey was on the outside of row 33. As far as how I would rank them hot to cold, I would go Lundgaard, Robb, and Harvey. This is more about not having a ton of faith in Stingray Robb or Jack Harvey, but I also think overall Lundgaard has been the strongest of the three, especially if, with the momentum that he has coming from from being second and finishing fourth at the GMR Grand Prix. I know obviously those are 2 entirely different races, but that still kind of gives you a little bit of a comfort value racing at Indy. And I also think, man, Christian Lundgaard, for being in the last row shootout, was super calm and collected. So I think he's going to have kind of the right vibe to go in and have success at the 500.
So my row 11, I'm actually going to go with Graham Rahal now. Look, he's stepping into a car that qualified 25th. Yeah, it's going to be a totally different car now. But Graham Rahal has had some success at Indianapolis. He just wasn't finding it this year with Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan. So I think putting him in a different car, it's kind of going to be his prove it opportunity, with the talk or rumors of him potentially looking to move on from Rahal. So it could be a good opportunity for him. So I think he takes the most of that opportunity, and of those 3 in row 11, I like Graham Rahal the best.
Inside of row 10, it's Callum Ilott, R.C. Enerson, Catherine Legg. Hot to cold. If I were to rank these guys, these drivers, can't say guys, because
No.
you got Catherine Legg in there, and that's who I have as the best of the three. Legg, Ilott, and Enerson is how I'd rank them. Catherine Legg has run twice the Indianapolis 500. Her best finish was 22nd, but that was back in 2012 and 2013. To get in the car for the first time in 10 years and not only qualify better than 4 series regulars, including her 3 teammates, but to put together the fastest lap and 4 lap average of any female driver in the history of the race is pretty darn impressive. I mean, that's better than Danica. That's better than Sarah Fisher. That's pretty incredible what she was able to do. I'll rank Ilott over Enerson just because of the fact that Enerson is a rookie, although Ilott in his only run has finished 32nd. But Catherine Legg, what a week or what a month she's had so far.
All right, before I get into this, I'm looking at the starting grid, the printout from the Indy Star, and they have the drivers' pictures next to their cars. And holy cow, Callum Ilott and Christian Lundgaard could be twins. Like, if it wasn't for a little tiny mustache on Christian Lundgaard, you would think they just photoshopped a different suit over.
They're like, we don't have an extra picture, so just
Like,
put a mustache
that's
on them in
gotta
a
be?
different
I'm like,
suit.
yeah. All right. So with this one, my order is I'm going with Christian Lundgaard as my hot. And then I'm going RC Enerson and then Catherine Legg. Look, I would have gone Catherine Legg a little bit higher, but having to go to a backup car and the different
True.
changes, that gives me a little bit of worry. But Christian Lundgaard, like you said, he looked calm, cool, collected in his run. Um, I actually we were talking about potential dark horses last week. He was one of the guys that I talked about. So I'm going to rank him as my hottest driver from row 10.
Final problem row. Inside of row 9 was originally going to be Stephen Wilson. He gets replaced by Graham Rahal. Devlin DeFrancesco is in the middle, and Augustin Canapino, the rookie, is on the outside. I was gonna give Wilson a lot of love here. He was gonna be my hottest. Wilson has run in 4 Indy 500s, finishing as high as 15th in 2018. Other runs weren't great, but when the other drivers in your row have one start between them, Wilson was the easy choice there. That means Graham Rahal is the easiest choice to make out of those 3 drivers. You talked about it earlier. I mean, heck, he was a tire falling off his car a couple of years ago from potentially winning the whole darn thing. Now, I,
Mm-hmm.
I, I'm going to talk about some storylines that are cool later when we get into our predictions. I think a cool storyline would be, after all the rumblings of his unhappiness with Rahal Letterman Lanigan and all that kind of things, if he were to go out, I mean, I don't think he is going to win the whole darn thing, but imagine if he wins the Indianapolis 500 filling in a different car, because you kind of wonder, like, okay, if he were to leave Rahal, like, it's kind of like when we talk
There's not a whole lot of options
right,
out
when we
there.
talk, it's like when we talk about like coaching changes and stuff like that. I mean, heck, we just talked about it with the Colts this past year. Like, yeah, Reich was struggling, but who are you going to get that's better at the moment? When we were talking about what moves you can make, and that's kind of the thing with Ray Hall. Like, yeah, Ray. I mean, I would love to see Ray Hall have some success and contend for a championship, but I mean, you know, I don't unless you're. I mean, Where are you going that kind of guarantees you like a shot at that, and who's taking the flyer on Ray Hall to fill their position as opposed to some other younger driver that they're bringing in. I'd be interested to see. I don't really know Alex Pilot's situation. What's gonna be beyond past 2023 with what team he's gonna be on. It'd be interesting to see once those dominoes fall, what other seats open up. But you talked about it being a kind of an audition run for Ray Hall, and I think this is going to be a really fun race to watch him run to see what he can do. To kind of show like, hey, look, it ain't me, guys. It's the equipment I'm being provided.
Right. So for me, my hot, like in the kind of jumbled up row 9, I'm going with Devlin DeFrancesco, then Callum Ilott, followed by Augustine Canapino. Um, I just feel like DeFrancesco is kind of one of those drivers that surprises people occasionally, especially at Indy. I remember last year he kind of opened up a few eyes. So I think he can kind of carry that, hopefully. But it's a tough row to pick one from. So I'm going with Devlin, then Callum, then Augustin.
And then once you get to row 8, that's actually when you start having a little bit of trouble deciding what you want to do, at least for
Yeah.
me. Row 8, inside of row 8 is Simon Pagino. Middle of row 8 is David Malukas, rounded out by Marco Andretti on the outside. My order, I went with Pagano, Andretti, then Malukas as far as ranking those drivers. I mean, this, though, like I said, is the first row I had trouble deciding with, and, yeah, it can't happen as far back as row 8. Between the three, Marco was fastest in practice 3. Pagano was fastest on Thursday, third overall. Marco was fastest on Fast Friday, second overall. I really wanted to go as with Malukas as my favorite from this row, especially since honestly he should have won Rookie of the Year last year instead of Jimmy Johnson. But Pagano won the 500 just 4 years ago. He qualified fastest of the three, was third fastest in practice on Thursday, and finished eighth with Meyer Shank Racing last season. Marco hasn't finished with the greatest. Marco hasn't finished in the top 10 at the greatest spectacle in racing since 2017. Lucas hasn't been faster than the other two this month at all, but I think he could still have a good run. So yeah, my order from that row is Pagano, Andretti, and then Malukas.
Gosh, this one's hard. I'm gonna go Andretti, Pagano, and then Malukas. But man, Pagano and Andretti are just so interchangeable there. I feel actually, you know what? I'm switching it. Pagano, Andretti, Malukas. Look, ever since Andretti has kind of gone, he's only doing the one race a year thing with, running the Indy 500. Um, Last year he just didn't perform very well. It was just kind of like he was uncomfortable behind the wheel of the car. So because of that, I'm leaning more towards Pagano to be the hottest of this row, past winner, with a team that has won it in the past. So I feel like if there's a chance for somebody to make some noise from this row, it is definitely Simon Pagano.
Row 7 on the inside, you've got Romain Grosjean. Middle, you've got Elio Castroneves. And on the outside, you've got Colton Herta. My ranking was Castroneves was the hottest driver of the three, followed by Herta and Grosjean. I mean, you can't argue with the four-time champ, including a win just a couple of years ago with his current team, Meyer Shank. You finished seventh last year with Meyer Shank despite starting 27th, so he's done it from deep in the field with this equipment before. He's done it with different teams. He's done it from different rows on the grid. Once it's race day, Spider-Man just has another gear. And I think he's just able to find that each and every year at this race. Herta is capable of a strong run, but has been super inconsistent at the 500. He's only finished higher than, he's only finished higher than he's qualified 3 of the 4 500s he's run. He started 10th and finished 8th in 2020. He has 2 finishes of 30th or worse. Herta has been faster than Grosjean all month, saved for qualifying. And as much hype as I was giving Grosjean, we look at his only 500 was last year and he crashed early, so it's kind of too tough to really tell what he's going to be able to do at the greatest spectacle in racing.
So row 7, give me Elio Castroneves, Roman Grosjean, then Colton Herta. I mean, there's not much more you need to say about Elio Castroneves. I mean, his team's wearing rocking shirts that say "Drive for 5." I mean, it's got a great ring to it. But I'm putting Roman Grosjean ahead of Colton Herta because Grosjean this year has put together a pretty solid year, a consistent year, and I could see that consistency carrying over to this weekend. Whereas Colton Herta, I mean, it's been up and down, and his track record during the 500 isn't great. And I just feel like Roman Grosjean is adapting better. He's adapted quickly to this car, and I think you're going to see him have a good race come Sunday. Whereas Colton Herta, I don't know. It's hard to tell what Colton Herta you're going to get week in and week out.
Very true. Inside of row 6, you've got Connor Daly. He is surrounded by Joseph Newgarden in the middle and Ryan Hunter-Ray on the outside. And I actually surprised myself with the way I went here. I went, as far as my order, Hunter-Ray, Joseph Newgarden, then Connor Daly. Although this is another hard road to gauge, between the three, Hunter Ray was fastest on Wednesday. He was eighth fastest, though Newgarden was right behind him in ninth. Connor Daly was fastest, sixth overall on Thursday, and then Newgarden was fastest on Friday, sixth overall. But Hunter Ray has won this thing before, and even though he didn't run last year's race, he's still got more top tens in the last 5 years than the other two. As far as what he's done on actual race day, Newgarden has the better equipment and statistically has been better than Daly on race day. As far as like the last few years, he's had more top fives and things along those lines. So I'm going with Newgarden. It's another kind of toss up row, but give me Hunter Ray just because of his experience and success on race day.
So for row number 6, I'm going Connor Daly, Ryan Hunter-Reay, then Joseph Newgarden. Look, Connor Daly showed us last year that it doesn't matter where he qualifies, he's going to be up at the front contending. I mean, he led a ton of laps, and if it wasn't for just a bad break last year, I mean, we probably could have been talking about him as the winner of the Indy 500. And then I'm going Ryan Hunter-Reay ahead of Joseph Newgarden because I feel like every year I look at Joseph Newgarden as a potential contender and winner of this race. And every year I get proven wrong. And it's like, you know what? You keep fooling me. And, I've been fooled so many times. It's totally shame on me. So now I'm not going to let it slip by me this time. I agree with you, Ryan Hunter-Reay. He's got the experience. He's been able to focus just on this race. I mean, it bodes well for him. But I mean, Joseph Newgarden does have better equipment, hands down. But I don't know. This has just been a struggle for him. He can be up there contending, and all of a sudden, boom, like bad pitch strategy or something. It's just hard to put your finger on what it is. So I'm going with him as the coldest of this row.
Looking at row 5 on the inside, it's Ed Carpenter, followed by Scott McLaughlin in the middle, and then on the outside, it's Kyle Kirkwood. And I'm going with my order. I'm going Kirkwood, Carpenter, and then McLaughlin. With the exception of the first practice session, Kirkwood has been faster than the other two in practice. He was fourth fastest on Saturday, which is higher than the other two on the speed charts. Carpenter's probably the play here. When I was writing it down, I was like, it's hard to bet against Carpenter. He has had strong runs at the 500 over the last 5 years, 3 finishes of 6 or higher, but I like how fast he's been so far this month. Talking about Kirkwood, he's been really good. And he's been able to finish at the middle of the pack. Sorry, I'm getting a little confused with what I wrote here. But I like how fast he's been so far this month, and he was able to finish at the middle of the pack with equipment that is arguably worse than what he has this year with Andretti Autosport. So Kirkwood, with not as good equipment last year, was still able to finish middle of the pack. I think that's what I was trying to say there. I don't know what jumbled mess that was, but he finished middle of the pack last year with worse equipment. He's got better equipment with Andretti Autosport this year, so I think he can have success. McLaughlin hasn't finished higher than 20th in his 2 Indy 500, so I know there's some people in our comment section that like Scott McLaughlin and think we don't give him enough love, but he just hasn't proven it on race day. So I like Kyle Kirkwood to be kind of a dark horse from this row.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we just had another Craig. Let me check my notes moment.
Yeah, we did.
And it always comes when we're talking about racing. So hey, keeping the tradition alive. But as far as row number 5 goes for me, give me Scott McLaughlin as my hottest driver. Kyle Kirkwood coming in a close second. And then Ed Carpenter to round out row 5. Look, I think the success and that Scott McLaughlin has seen at Texas can help him be better prepared for this race. I feel more confident in him coming into this year than even last year or the year before. So I think, he's gonna that success is gonna come through. Kyle Kirkwood, like you said, he's been fast all month. He's proven that he can be running up there on lesser equipment. He's got good equipment now, so expect big things out of him. Ed Carpenter, it's so tough to say with him just because it's the one race he runs. I don't know. Last year, it seemed like a struggle for him when everybody else on his team was doing well. I'm just not as confident in him. So that's why I put him third on that row.
Now we're into the top 12 here. Inside of row 4, Marcus Ericsson, followed by Benjamin Peterson, then Will Power. My order, as far as who I think is the hottest driver from this row, I'm going Ericsson, then Power, then Peterson. Ericsson was fastest in practice 4 on Thursday, 7th on Wednesday, 4th on Fast Friday. He's been faster than the other two in practice and qualifying. He was the points leader heading into May, last year's Indy 500 champion. I like Ericsson of these three, although we haven't seen a repeat winner of the greatest spectacle in racing in over 20 years, so that is something to keep in mind. Power won in 2018. He finished 5th in 2019, but since then he hasn't been higher than 14th. Peterson, though really fast in qualifying, has the misfortune of being in the same row as Power and Ericsson. That's why I don't like him as much, although, I mean, look, that says something itself of his chances that he's even in that conversation with Ericsson and Power. So Peterson's last for me, but again, once you get up to this level, I mean,
it's tough.
It's tough, and honestly, you can make the argument for any of these guys in any of these rows coming up.
Yeah, so I'm the exact same order. Marcus Ericsson, Will Power, Benjamin Peterson. Really, Marcus Ericsson and Will Power can easily flip-flop, but Marcus Ericsson gets the nod because of being the reigning Indy 500 champ, and Will Power does not because of his recent struggles during the 500. So it's like you said, it's a tough row, but I got to go with the reigning champ as the hottest driver in the row, and then kind of the surprise rookie as the coldest.
Row 3, top 9
Gosh,
here.
This row.
Yeah, this is.
I mean,
you've got
just throw it at a wall, and you're like, yep, that works.
3 former winners in this row at the Indianapolis 500. Pretty crazy. On the inside, you've got Alexander Rossi, followed by Takuma Sato in the middle. Outside row 3 is Tony Kanaan. McLaren's was fast this weekend, and so obviously 2 of those drivers are there with Kanaan and Rossi. I still like the idea of Takuma Sato and all the success he's had, and then all that predating the fact that he has better equipment this year than he's ever had. That's going to be really exciting. Since 2016, which was the first race that featured all 3 of these drivers, Rossi has a win, 2 podiums, 4 top 5s and 5 top 10s. Sato 2 wins, 3 podiums. Kanaan a podium, 3 top 5s and 5 top 10s. Rossi's been the most consistent of the 3 on race day, and McLaren's been super fast, as I've said, so I think my order is going to be Rossi, Sato, then Kanaan. I hate it. Kanaan's been more consistent than Sato. Kanaan's been my favorite driver, excited for the chance to see his final race at the Indianapolis 500, but I still have a hunch about Takuma Sato with Chip Ganassi power behind him. But also, there's no wrong answer here. I mean, like you said,
exactly.
Throw it at a wall, and that's just as much of an order as anything else.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go Kanaan, Rossi, then Sato. I think the experience. I mean, Rossi and Kanaan, I feel like could be interchangeable a little bit, but Kanaan always recently he's come in, he stepped in just for this race, and then comes out and has a great run. I could see Kanaan doing that this year. I mean, he's been, again, I'm going to use this phrase, quietly been good. I mean, a fan favorite. I don't know how you can be quietly good, but he has. He's just been there. He's been consistent every day. I don't know. Also, knowing it's his last Indy 500, you kind of want to pull for him a little bit more. Rossi, like I said earlier, Rossi's he's found his legs again, and things are looking good. Yes, Sato does have the best equipment he's probably ever had coming into the Indy 500. However, Sato can sometimes get in his own way as a driver. And what scares me about this row is that you got Alexander Rossi and Tony Kanaan on either side of him. Sato is such a wild card that something could happen at the beginning of the race where I don't know, where he could potentially take out both Rossi and Kanaan and come out of it completely clean, but there goes 2 contenders right off the bat. It's just one of those, like, because you hear the phrase, man, I got Satoed. That driver got Satoed. And I don't know. So I'm picking him as the coldest driver in this row just because sometimes he drives it a little too hard.
Yeah, I mean that's I agree. I remember being at the USGP, and that's when he was in Formula One, and he was like drove with so much attrition, and that's carried him throughout his entire career. So definitely, the being Sadoed is very real. So yeah, kind of a wild card in that respect. Row two on the inside, you have Santino Ferrucci. In the middle, Pato Award, and then on the outside, Scott Dixon. My order for this row, as far as hot to cold, I'm going Award, then Dixon, then Ferrucci. In 2020, that was Pato's first Indy 500. He finished sixth and won Rookie of the Year. He finished fourth in 2021, was runner-up last year. So in other words, if you notice the trend there, Award has improved his finishing position at the 500 every year that he's running the greatest spectacle in racing. And after finishing second, there's really only one more spot to go if you're going to keep that trend up. Also was fired up after coming up short last year. I mean, obviously, like, who wouldn't be when you finish second, but still, that'll serve as motivation. Dixon has been snake-bitten more often than not at the 500 as of late. Ferrucci has finished in the top 10 every year he's been at Indy, but still feels weird to go with have Dixon last from this row, not picking the Iceman there. So not ready to do that quite yet, but I think Award is the class of these three.
So yeah, I got Award as the hottest driver from this row as well. Like you said, finishing runner up last year just kind of left a bad taste in his mouth. He had a really good car last year. He's got a really good car again this year. So give me a Pato Award there to lead things off. However, I am going with Santino Ferrucci right there in the middle because, like you said, he's just been consistent. Top 10 finishes in every 500 for him. And this is, going to be his best starting position. Just everything's kind of aligning for Ferrucci to have a really good race day. Then I'm going with Scott Dixon, mostly because, like you said, he has been snake bitten in this, whether it's been a pit road issue or a wreck or fuel mileage not working out, which is really strange for a Scott Dixon race. It's just when you look at the other two drivers and you look at history doesn't look so kindly upon Scott Dixon at this track. But like we've always said with Scott Dixon, it's not just about one race, it's about the end game.
Yep, for sure. Row one, the fastest front row in history. On the inside, it's Alex Palou. Middle, it's Rinus VeeKay. Outside, Felix Rosenqvist. And so my hot to cold here is Palou, then Rosenqvist, then VeeKay. I mean, we talked about Palou earlier. He's got all the momentum in two Indy 500s with Ganassi. He's finished second and ninth. Neither VeeKay nor Rosenqvist have been able to convert their qualifying efforts into 500 success. VeeKay has never started worse than fourth, but has finished inside the top 20 just once in his three races. He was eighth in 2021, and Rosenqvist started eighth last year, finished fourth. That and the fact that McLaren Power has been so good this year is why I'm going with him. However, his best finish before that was 12th with a pair of finishes outside the top 25. So neither VeeKay nor Rosenqvist have had race day success. They've just qualified really well and then not been able to convert that into success when it mattered most.
Yes, I'm going with the exact same order, same reasons. I mean, Alex Palou, unbelievable month. Felix Rosenqvist, like I said earlier, has had a quiet, good run up to the 500. Rinus VeeKay, I just feel like he knows how to qualify that car really well, but just doesn't know how to put it together come race day, and is more likely to be wreckers than checkers this Sunday. So give me Palou, Rosenqvist, then VeeKay.
There you have it. That's our full field breakdown of the starting grid.